Hey y'all, it's Espresso Boy. With Phase 2 of 2.4 approaching, some of you may be wondering who to pull for from the upcoming banner, or if you should skip and save your precious Stellar Jade. Well, today I'll be going over our newest Foxian character, Jiaoqiu, as well as Sparkle, and the 4 stars on the banner. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Jiaoqiu is the newest featured 5-star unit, and is the first 5-star nihility unit in the game. While he may call himself a healer, Jiaoqiu's kit is all about applying an oppressive amount of debuffs on enemies through his application of Ashen Roast stacks. Before we get into his kit, let's go over Ashen Roast. Ashen Roast is a unique debuff to Jiaoqiu that increases the damage received by enemies based on each stack of Ashen Roast on the target, stacking up to a maximum of 5 times. This debuff also acts as a burn dot, dealing damage on enemy turns. Jiaoqiu's basic attack deals fire damage to a single enemy. However, Jiaoqiu's talent makes it so that every basic attack, skill, or ult has a chance of applying 1 stack of Ashen Roast, meaning that Jiaoqiu's basic attack can be used to apply 1 stack of Ashen Roast to a single enemy. Jiaoqiu's skill is a blast attack that deals fire damage to the primary and adjacent targets, while applying 1 stack of Ashen Roast to the primary target. This also works with his talent, which means that every enemy hit with his skill gets 1 stack of Ashen Roast, while the primary target gets the additional stack from the skill itself. This makes it so that each skill cast can apply up to 4 Ashen Roast stacks, 2 on the primary target and 1 onto each adjacent target. Jiaoqiu's ultimate creates a zone on the field that deals fire damage to every single enemy, and through his talent has a chance to apply 1 stack of Ashen Roast to each enemy hit. While the zone is active, each enemy gains Ashen Roast stacks equal to the highest amount of Ashen Roasts on an enemy. So if one enemy has 5 Ashen Roast stacks, then after the ultimate is cast, all enemy units will gain 5 Ashen Roast stacks as well. Enemies will also gain a stack of Ashen Roast during their action while in the field, and this can trigger up to 6 times per ult, the ult lasting for 3 of Jiaoqiu's own turns. This makes Jiaoqiu an incredible support unit for everyone's favorite nihility emanator, Acheron, as she will quickly gain /stream stacks when enemies take actions within Jiaoqiu's ultimate field. Jiaoqiu's ultimate ability also increases all ultimate damage done to enemies within the zone, further increasing Acheron's damage potential. While Jiaoqiu is clearly Acheron's best in slot support, he is also a fairly versatile unit that could slot into almost every team due to the fact that Ashen Roast can increase the damage potential of all damage types. His frequent debuff application can benefit other units as well, such as Dr. Ratio, or any other future units that require debuffs to function optimally, as well as certain dot team comps, as Ashen Roast can double as a fire dot. When it comes to his positives, Jiaoqiu is an incredibly versatile unit, since his debuff can improve all damage types in the game. Jiaoqiu is also the easiest debuffer to use, with the highest debuff uptime in the game. Compared to other debuff units, Jiaoqiu can reach max stacks on enemies with only a few actions, and through proper ult usage can maintain those stacks throughout the fight, making him fairly skill point positive in the long run. One final point is that Jiaoqiu is a great debuffer for Pure Fiction. His ultimate's ability to set Ashen Roast stacks to the highest amount to all enemies on the field lasts for the duration of the zone. This means that each new enemy wave in Pure Fiction that takes the field during the zone's duration will also be set to the highest amount of Ashen Roast stacks. This makes Jiaoqiu great for Pure Fiction, especially for units like Argenti. He can also help to further enable Acheron in Pure Fiction settings, as she'll get her ultimate more frequently as enemies take turns. As for his downsides, Jiaoqiu is really only best in slot for Acheron teams. While he can add value to teams outside of Acheron, other 5-star Harmony or Nihility units can outperform him. Before we move on to the next unit, if you enjoy this video or find it helpful, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Up next is the masked fool herself, Sparkle. This is Sparkle's first rerun since appearing in 2.0, and since it released several new characters, including damage dealers who can take advantage of her kit, as well as other 5-star Harmony units have been released. Sparkle is a 5-star Quantum Harmony unit that shines in hypercarry team comps, especially those that are skill point hungry. First off, by simply having Sparkle in your team, her talent increases the team's skill point cap by 2, meaning the maximum amount of skill points your team can now carry is 7. Sparkle's talent also increases the damage done by allies through a stacking buff when her teammates use skill points. This makes her kit really helpful for skill point hungry teams and encourages them to use more skill points to gain higher damage. Sparkle's basic attack deals quantum damage to a single enemy and gives her a higher energy regen. However, this should rarely be used if you are aiming to get the most out of your Sparkle. Sparkle's skill is where she shines. Sparkle's skill can be used to select a single teammate. This teammate is advanced forward by 50% of Sparkle's own speed, and they receive a massive crit damage buff based on Sparkle's own crit damage. It's important to note that based on how speed and action value work within the game, a fast enough Sparkle will nearly always bring her teammate up to the next spot in the action order, and can over time allow this unit to take several more actions than they would have been able to originally. This allows units that would normally wear speed boots to equip attack percent boots to further increase their damage ceiling. Sparkle's ultimate recovers 4 skill points for the team upon casting, and also increases the damage buff for using skill points from her talent for the entire team. This is incredibly useful for teams who need to burn through skill points to reach their full potential. Sparkle is a very powerful Harmony unit for hypercarry team comps, and is the best in-slot support for Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune, as he can fully take advantage of her skill point recovery and crit damage buffs. Other crit-focused hypercarry units such as Argenti, Jingliu, as well as follow-up attack characters like Jing Yuan and Dr. Ratio can also use Sparkle's buffs, as they last until the start of the unit's following turn, thus applying to any follow-up attack or ultimate attacks triggered between turns. Finally, Sparkle can also be used in niche team comps, such as Mana Quantum. One of her traces increases the attack of her other teammates based on how many quantum units are in the team. So if you ever wanted to main Zila or Qingchui, Sparkle is a fantastic unit to increase the damage output of both of those characters. When it comes to Sparkle's positives, there aren't really any units in the game that wouldn't benefit from her skill point recovery or action advanced. If you enjoy the hypercarry playstyle, Sparkle will most likely be the best in-slot support for crit-based hypercarry units for quite a while. However, her only real negative is that outside of crit-based hypercarry teams, Sparkle can be outclassed by the other 5-star Harmony units. So if you are interested in different team comps such as Break, Dual DPS, or Dot, you may want to focus on other supports. Before moving on to my recommendations, I quickly want to discuss the 4-star units on this banner. The featured 4 stars for this banner are Hook, Gwenhyfen, and Arlen, and honestly these 3 units don't add much value to the banner overall. Jiaoqiu is in some ways a 5-star upgrade of Gwenhyfen, so if you plan on pulling for him, you won't get much value from pulling her as well. Arlen and Hook are 2 units that are considered to be incredibly niche and pretty underpowered within the community, and neither add any real value to the featured 5 stars. Overall, I would not recommend pulling for any of these 4 stars, so if you're considering pulling on these banners, it should really only be if you want one of the featured 5 stars. Now for my recommendations on if you might want to pull or skip on this banner. Starting with Jiaoqiu, if you have Acheron in your account and want to continue investing in her, then you should definitely consider pulling, as he will most likely be your best in-slot support for a very long time. If you enjoy dot-focused teams, you might also consider pulling Jiaoqiu, as his debuffs double as fire burn dots. Keep in mind that currently characters such as Black Swan will be far more beneficial to Kafka dot teams, but in the future, as dot teams develop, Jiaoqiu might become better in certain dot team comps. You might also want to pull for Jiaoqiu if you like using Dr. Ratio but don't have Topaz and don't plan on getting her, due to his consistent debuff application. If you don't have any of those units, you may still want to consider pulling for Jiaoqiu, as he is a versatile unit that can increase the damage of all damage types, but keep in mind that outside of Acheron teams, other 5-star Harmony and Nihility units will most likely outperform him in their team comps. If you enjoy using Imbibitor Lune, then I would definitely recommend pulling Sparkle, as she absolutely skyrockets the amount of damage he can do, and almost completely resolves his skill point issues. You should also consider pulling for Sparkle if you enjoy the hypercarry playstyle, as Sparkle will most likely be the best in-slot support for crit-based hypercarry units for quite a while. However, outside of hypercarry crit teams, Sparkle is quickly outclassed by other 5-star Harmony units, so if you are interested in different team comps such as Break, Dual DPS, or Dot, you may want to prioritize units like Robin or Ruan Mei. Overall, this banner features 2 really strong support-style units that are best-in-slot supports for 2 of the highest damage DPS units in the game. If you have either of these DPS units, I would highly recommend pulling on this banner. but if you don't have DHIL or Acheron, you may want to consider saving your Jades for the future. I know myself, if I wasn't saving for future Black Swan or Kafka reruns, I would be pulling Jiaoqiu for my Acheron, and I already have Sparkle for my Imbibed Lunae. If you plan on pulling on this banner, or if you have any questions about the kits of either character, let me know in the comment section below, as I'd love to know who you're pulling for or to answer any of your questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.